Hey, welcome to On the Chain. This is Jeff here with co-host Chip. There he is. It's another night in the neighborhood of cryptocurrency here on the chain. Tonight, actually, we are going to get into talking about a brand new conceptual project over there at the XRP, at the Ripple, at the XRP ledger. This one, Ripple XRP sidechains, smart contracts, native tokens on the XRPL. How exciting is that, Chip? How exciting is that?
I am super excited about tonight's show because this is something that you and I have talked about a lot, and it's finally coming. So I'm excited. Let's get this puppy kicked off.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Welcome to On the Chain.
Just remember, Chip, you are the level-headed one.
Jeff, I was going to remind you that at some point tonight, but you've already reminded me. Just remember, I was going to throw it in there. Just remember, I'm the level-headed one. I told my wife that, and she's like, "What? You are?" She laughed. She's like, "What?" Because she's the level-headed one in our whole thing, man. She's like the one that's keeping everything together.
Well, what does that say for me?
Says you're a raving lunatic. You're not. You're not job.
I'll tell you what, I try to bring my son out to go places, and he always reminds me this one time we're in Iceland, and I'm driving the SUV up this side of a cliff, up the side of this mountain, off-roading, and he was freaking out, and he said, "Didn't you see the sign? It said impossible." It said impassable. And I said, "Yeah, but there was a truck coming the other way, so I was going the other way." And ever since then, forget about it. It's like, I can't do anything. He goes, "You're crazy. I can't trust you." I was like, "Are you in one piece? Are you alive? Are we good?"
Yeah. Don't worry about that. He'll remember the rest of his life and thought, that was pretty cool, man. At some point, I think it's pretty cool.
Don't forget that.
Yeah.
So XRP.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mean, let's I think there's a lot to jump in and dice up here, but I think we should well, actually, let's start it off with this here. I think what we'll do is we'll jump through. Yeah, let's do this right here because this right here is probably one of the best things this year. That's how excited I am about this. It's probably the greatest thing. And I know Ripple's done a lot of stuff, but I mean, in that whole idea with this, with the lawsuit and everything, but this right here, this one has
exciting, something new.
This is something exciting. So I think what we'll do is let's start off with David Schwartz. Let's start off with his introduction, and we'll kind of dive into it. You and I will mini sort of workshop it. We'll do a little workshop on it, and we'll start talking about the possibilities and like getting feedback from everybody. But he says, today I introduced my vision for adding federated sidechains to the XRP ledger, which means a lot of things, but essentially anyone who wants to can run a side chain to the XRPL. And prior to broadcast tonight, Jeff and I were talking about this. And Jeff, your initial thoughts when we started talking about it?
I had no thoughts.
Okay, good.
No,
next,
man.
Of course you did, dude. You got tons of thoughts.
Man, no, I was gonna say this was, in my estimation, it's game changing. You know, I mean, you're moving in a direction now. We know that, Flare is moving in the direction of the smart contract. Right. Everybody knows baked into the XRP ledger is so much amazing technology. I would say it's game-changing technology in the crypto ecosystem. And now they've taken it a step further. This whole idea of a side chain, this whole idea of smart contracts, the whole idea of a unique token. I mean, you can do so much, and they just shifted gears here, and to me, it's opening up a lot of things they've talked about. They keep emphasizing and focusing in on CBDCs. And Chip, I believe that and this isn't hasn't been locked in. They haven't rolled it out or anything like that. It's probably just in discussion at this point. And to create that kind, I don't know what it would take to add in this kind of adjustment in the software and the ecosystem, but man, it's kind of a game-changing idea.
It really is, and this is what I really love. We talk about basically David Schwartz and what he's really great at. This is it right here. This is what he is the master at. And that's one of the reasons he's probably one of the smartest humans in crypto. He talks about the Federator, which is software that acts as a bridge between at least two instances of the XRP ledger, for example, the XRPL mainnet and one or more sidechains. And the concept would allow each sidechain to have its own ledger and transactions, as well as the federation system that allows XRP, an issued token, for example, Bitcoin, fiat, anything really, to move from one chain to the other. So we're going to kind of get in like the broad spectrum. Then we're going to say, well, okay, what does that mean for us? What, after we start breaking down all this technical jargon, we're going to jump into it. But he says doing so could, in theory, enable developers to implement features like smart contract functionality. And this is what we've been waiting for. Remember, Jeff, there was Codius that kind of was like a pretty exciting project, but never kind of really got there. And what I always worried about with the XRP ledger is that it does something really well. It's super fast, super low cost. Don't mess with it. Don't try to add on to it and build it and change it into something that's not. The focus has always been there. What I love about the side chain is it's going to allow an amazing amount of functionality. And it says it could enable developers to enable smart contract functionality off the XRPL mainnet, meaning less risk of harming the network while maintaining its existing feature set, faster deployment, and of course, access to real assets. Number of things would need to happen in order to make federated sidechains a reality, including but not limited to building the federated software itself, adding new features, the XRPL server software that would activate the sidechains, etc. But of course, this vision is a starting point. I look forward to any and all feedback from the XRPL developer community, ways to improve the proposal and make the sidechains feasible. To me, I only see one way, and that's up. I mean, this cat's out of the bag. And don't think that David just did a tweet storm about it. It's like this, he put some serious thought into it. He actually released a blog post on ripplex.io, blog.ripplex.io, and he kind of goes into it a little bit. Talks about last 9 years. XRP was committed to having the most innovation and forward progress of the ledger to dramatically increase its decentralization, performance, and feature set. He says the most requested features that they hear from developers and contributors to the XRPL are smart contracts. And we've been talking about this so often here, right? Obviously, we're excited about Flare, but the sidechain is going to allow smart contracts and so much more to work with the XRP ledger. And it's
amazing, Chip. I mean, it's, it's going to go beyond basic interoperability. I mean, now it's a blending of all these different technologies. When you're able to bring in, like you mentioned, the side chain, you bring in the smart contract, you bring in the token, you bring in all of these different elements. I mean, it allows things to scale in a direction that I think are relatively unseen at this point. XRPL, regardless of all the different discussions and arguments out there of the XRP digital asset, whether it's as the SEC is trying to argue an unregistered security, or if it's like the Bitcoin maxis, want to argue that XRP is a banker's coin. Funny that they used to say that. But when you look at the XRPL and what it brings to the ecosystem, it was as though it was way ahead of its time, because it already had created the infrastructure for rapid expansion at such scale that I don't think you can see with any other project.
Oh, exactly. And what he highlights here is the exponential growth in decentralized finance. Obviously, DeFi, they said the number of DeFi developers has grown 110% since 2019. We're talking about a year and a half. It's grown 110%. It kind of went from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour. And he said that number is projected to go well beyond 2021. He said Ripple, they've long advocated against features that would compromise the XRPL. Because remember, in the past, there's been conversations about perhaps tweaking the XRPL or making it do this. What I love about this concept is the fact that developers don't have to wait. There's no place to get in line. You can actually start developing once everything's ready to go.
Yep.
You can build a side chain, right? So he talks about proposing this, still allowing the XRP ledger to maintain its lean and efficient nature. Side chains allow for experimentation, specialization. Developers can go ahead and really harness the power of the XRPL via the side chain, acts as its own blockchain in a way. So, for example, imagine the potential to branch out into new functionality by slimming down the XRPL's features to a specific subset for like whatever use case you have, or creating a private parallel network for permissioned blockchain. Federated sidechains can make this a reality. So this is huge. I just so excited about this when I saw this, and I really want this. I hope this really gains traction with the user base, because to me, this you're talking about bringing Bitcoin in. You're talking about bringing almost any native token. We'll get into a little bit of that as far as why that's important and why any native token can now harness the XRPL. And that's why it's a massive game changer. He says, in order to understand the vision for the federated sidechains, first, you have to define a federator. This is the software that connects the two instances, which he talked about in his tweet storm. Federated software means anyone who wanted to run a sidechain to the XRP ledger. On one side, the federator is connected to the XRP ledger mainnet. On the other side, it connects one or more sidechains. Then the federator would be run only by parties who operate validators for each one sidechain. So kind of like a little, there you go. You have the sidechain, the federator, the XRPL, the federator, and the sidechain. So in theory, you could act all these sidechains. So the sidechains could have a smart contract on it, right? So if something was going to go ahead and you had two instances and you needed to execute it, boom. So you could have your native token, could be Doge, could be almost anything. That native token could work in there inside of a smart contract. The XRPL, obviously, if you wanted to, somebody else wanted to get paid out in a different currency, whether it's fiat or whether it's a different digital asset, boom, that'll be done through the XRPL. So the functionality totally remains.
It's amazing. I mean, you think about some of the issues that we talk about a lot. We talk about countries maintaining their sovereignty through maintaining their own sovereign currency. You lose your sovereign currency, then you lose your sovereignty. Now here, there's a lot of conversation about digital currency, central bank digital currencies. If you're going to use another technology that is still like, imagine right now trying to implement Bitcoin as your primary currency. You're still subjected to the whims of all the other, mining essentials within the ecosystem. So there could be an imbalance. You're no longer in control of your own sovereign currency. You want to maintain some centralization to your own currency. You don't want your own currency to be decentralized. It kind of, upsets the balance of what your objective is as a sovereign entity. But now here, you want to be able to utilize the best of the technology. And everyone says, why don't they just use XRP? Well, a country isn't going to use XRP that is somewhat controlled, even though through a decentralized ecosystem, but it's still, more private, in the hands of private. It's not in the hands of government. But imagine you can build chip on the XRP ledger with a sidechain as a central bank digital currency, and you have full control over your section of that ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm not so sure.
Greatest technology ever.
Yeah, I think the CBDCs could definitely use it like inside of like smart contracts, because again, using their CBDC as the native token, they can harness the power and do. And so what you're talking about is having those smart contracts now come to something that really hadn't been explored, right? Or let's say, something you brought up earlier today, which I hadn't thought about, was stable coins. Bringing a stable coin into this ecosystem, into a smart contract, right? It's usually not thought about that way, but you could do it with the side chain. And so it kind of breaks it down into two things. Federated side chains could use XRP as a primary asset. So in that case, people use the federation system to move XRP from the XRPL to the side chain. Then the XRP could be used in the side chain just as it could on the main chain. Anyone could move XRP from either chain. But alternatively, side chains could use their own native token. So people with accounts on both ledgers could move XRP to and from the issued asset on the sidechain. And I think this is where the power comes in, because now you're talking about how many thousand potential opportunities out there with digital assets, the sky's the limit. And the difference is that you can build, if the software, once the federated software is there, you can start building, start interfacing with the commands with the XRPL.
Amazing.
And now you've got something just incredibly fascinating. So I think this is great. Let's throw this up there.
Yeah.
David Allison says, you want to take that, Jeff?
Go ahead and read it.
Yeah, thoughts on Snode's comments on digital assets, Bitcoin, or any other assets, if none at the present. Could we get some thoughts in the near future? Thank you both for the hard work for the community. Digital asset. What's that?
I said, appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you, David. Snode's comments on digital assets, Bitcoin. I'm not exactly sure which particular ones. Throw them in there, David, so we know which comments you're specifically addressing. Because if it was something that went down this weekend, a lot went down this weekend. I try to catch as much as I could, but love to hear more on that. So we talks about functionality. This would all work with the DEX, or a decentralized exchange. XRP imported into sidechains used for liquidity on their integrated DEX as well. But the strategy, kind of three things. You want to take those?
I'm looking for the comments from Snowden. But all right, go ahead. What do we have here?
I was just saying there's three things to the strategy. First of all, you got to build the software. This is the federator. Now, once they get this thing built, there's two trivial changes to the operation of the live XRP ledger network, and then adding new features to the XRPL server software, which allows it to operate in a sidechain. However, the features would not be enabled on the XRPL itself. The current recommendation is to fork the XRPL software so that new versions of the sidechain software would come out without having to make new versions of XRPL software, and that reduce the risk of harming the XRPL. And I like what David.
That's smart. Yeah, I like that.
I like what he's thinking about here, because I always worried that, like, don't mess with something that really works well. If you try to push it, this is what happens with a lot of companies. They're like, we're really good at this. No, let's do this, and then you sort of lose the one thing you were really good at. And the XRPL will not be harmed. And I love the way David's thinking in this. You can tell he put a lot of thought into this, you know?
Yeah. You can't put the ecosystem in danger because you want to create all these side chains. You have to keep the core of what it is unscathed, especially as you start making adjustments. You don't want to adjust, and that's, I think, the objective. The other thing, I look at the side chains as a mechanism to scale the entire ecosystem, even, within, if you look at what Ripple could do with it, there are obviously all these other companies out there, but Ripple's objective with RippleNet, utilizing what they created was their ODL. Imagine what you can now do with all these different side chains and just orchestrating, it's really amazing. I mean, the sky's the limit in terms of what can be created.
Yeah, one of the things he talks about here in this post here, I skipped over a bunch of technical jargon. I think it's just a little too techy. With the software, anyone can run a side chain on the XRP ledger. Right. Developers, it unlocks new use cases like native DeFi capabilities, smart contracts. Devs can also build and launch blockchain features that are baked into the side chains. And in the future, successful features could even be ported to the XRPL mainnet. So
if it works, if it's functional, if they see something that is, makes sense, why not? I mean, it's almost like the greatest sandbox as well, within the system, within the ecosystem.
Yeah, and when they talk about the developers can manage a side chain, they have the freedom to decide how their chains work. And again, we always talk about how decentralization equals freedom. When you give developers that freedom to go create, you don't have a lot of restrictions around it. This is where I think the real power of this comes in. And they talk about the validators, they talk about multi-sig keys and stuff like that. But that's all kind of stuff that's going to happen in the background. The bottom line is it talks about horizontal scalings. They have their own fee system. So what you could do, suppose you have a digital asset, let's say, HBAR, almost anything, you bring one in, let's say Dogecoin, for example, you bring Dogecoin in, could have their own fee system. Now, the XRPL is like minimalistic drops, right? But you could build something into that was also a low cost, but maybe it's like a little bit more. Instead of a drop, which is a tenth of a penny, you could maybe it's a different fee system. It's 20 cents per transaction. It's 30 cents per transaction, and you have your own fee system that's kind of baked in that would work in conjunction with the XRPL. You're obviously minimizing risk because the X doesn't need to change. There's no change there.
Yeah,
Super low effort.
Yeah, I like the low effort. I mean, look at anybody who wants to experiment with blockchain. You have an entire ecosystem. That's why I keep thinking about the CBDCs, because here you have countries that want to build a CBDC, and why not use the best ecosystem to do it? And you create your own sidechain, create your own environment within the ecosystem that doesn't have an impact from any external involvement, and it's yours. But you're utilizing the best ecosystem that's currently available for the movement of money. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Oh, exactly. You build your own. So they talk about some of the changes, the XRPL. They go on to, that's pretty much it. I think that's in a nutshell, but I think this is a huge development. I really want to see this gain some traction. I hope some people can tweet about it, can jump out there, go to David Schwartz, at Joel Katz, and weigh in. You're the community. Let's get some traction around this, because this is going to open up. I mean, what Flare is and the ecosystem it's building, this is kind of like the bridge that Codius wanted to be. Codius with the smart contracts was a really promising project, but again, you want to keep your focus. One of the things I've appreciated about David Schwartz, and he started that, some other people started that. They want to keep their focus. Now, this is probably been brewing for some time, Jeff, but the whole idea of building these federated sidechains is going to open up universes of possibilities and bring in smart contracts to the native XRPL. Love it.
Yeah, and I was reading an article, I think it was on Motley Fool, and they were trying to predict, which two digital assets are here for the long haul. They looked at the ecosystem, and they're kind of lamenting on the whole ecosystem as, as just kind of a test bed that is going to all go away. So there were two assets. They said, these are going to be here for the long term. One of them was XLM, due to the fact that it had a partnership with IBM and everything they're doing in the payment space, and Ethereum. Now I look at the person that was writing, I said, maybe you don't really understand the ecosystem so much, but the idea, conceptually, what they're thinking about from a financial perspective, although they only focused in this article, XLM and Ethereum, but they're looking at smart contracts and they're looking at payment rails. So there you go, the two mechanisms. And really, when we get into it from an economic perspective, finance perspective, or pure business perspective, what are the elements that are needed in order to further mainstream adoption within that space, within business or whatever? It's going to be smart contracts because of legal contracts, right? And you want automation throughout the process to simplify business, and money, moving money. That's what you need. You put those two elements together, which is what they try to accomplish with Ethereum. But we saw what happens at scale. Once you start scaling it, the gas fees are out of control. Now they're saying the gas fees are less because there's not as many, there's not as much involvement at this moment in time. But you put it back to scale and you're talking about ridiculous fees. And here, you have Flare coming up, but it's more of just a smart contract environment. Still needs XRP, still needs the XRP ledger. Create this environment with these side chains and the smart contracts and this involvement. It's exciting. I'm excited about it, man.
You're bringing up a really good point, Jeff, because when you look at Ethereum, right, that was what was really like first time we'd ever really seen the whole idea about the smart contract and a place to build. So then you had the ERC20s, you had the BEP20s, and everybody and their mother was releasing a token. It was like crazy, and it kind of clogged it up. And you're right. Yeah, okay, well, when the crypto market kind of takes a little bit of a turn, you're not going to see as many transactions happen. But you're right, when you scale that puppy back up. Now you're drawing a really good distinction between the difference between what Ethereum has and this. Now, the sidechain allows any project, their project and their native token is what it is, stays on its own blockchain. But the point that David's raising here is you're kind of creating your own little blockchain that's running parallel to the XRPL. So now anything you can dream up and think of and have execute can happen on these side chains that interface. And then when they talk about the multi-sig, the multi-signing where you can have the validators and all that, man, the system is really well thought out. He put a lot of time and energy into this. I love this. I think this is a huge game changer potentially for the ecosystem, and it's going to pull a lot more people in. Now, here's where we're at, right? It's a proposal. So proposals, you know, like my friend Bruce, who passed away last year, used to always say, was his favorite saying was, everything's a good idea until somebody has to do something. Well, somebody has to do something right now. We got to say like, hey, let's do something. I like the idea. So what's the next step? What do we do? You know, it's the same way within Florida. Everyone's like, well, we want to make Miami the Bitcoin capital of the world, the digital asset capital of the world, the blockchain capital of the world, Tampa and everything. Okay. Let's back it up. Let's have legislation. Let's talk about how we make that happen from the top level view. And then once you create that ecosystem, now you can have everybody come in and play. But other than that, it's like otherwise you could crush the dream before it even starts. So I hope this gets some traction. You will have to closely monitor this to see what's going on.
I'm excited, and I'm looking at, you get to a point where we want large mainstream adoption. We want businesses to use it. You want it to go through retail. We want adoption of the crypto. That's what everybody's talking about. We know we need some normalcy. We need a little bit of regulatory clarity. Something has to happen, but you also need I don't want to call it a dumbing down, but I want to, call it maybe a simplification of the utility of the technology. I open up an app on my phone to go to my bank. I don't want to have to figure out, how do I get my passcode? How do I do, this one and that one? And I want to send money and I got to copy the code and paste the code and two, step authentications and all this stuff. And it's complex. And then at the end of the day, now I got to figure out how do I get it onto that exchange, but I got to put in that asset to get it to that exchange. When I'm on that exchange, I got to convert into another asset to get something else. It's super confusing for people, so it needs to come down and get simplified. It has to be an experience like opening up your bank app on your phone, going to E-Trade and buying stock. If I go to E-Trade or if I go to Fidelity, I can buy the exact same stocks. It doesn't matter. But that's mainstream adoption. That's the direction this is going in. We're talking about with Ripple gaining traction with mainstream adoption to allow others to build on the XRP ledger, utilizing that technology and building it out the way they see it. They create their entirely new concept within that utilizing that ecosystem with no impact on the ledger. And I look at this. So I see a comment here from Doc's Gambling, and he says, guys, I have a bunch of XRP, XLM, VET, etc. I'll have plenty of Spark, but I'm seriously confused on how to progress. I want to compound it. He talks about Mick B's videos. Still confused. And it does get confusing. Compounding and staking and this one and the Uniswap and the Pancake Swap and this swap and the waffles and the, French toast and all this stuff. It gets super confusing, and all you want to do is go on to Coinbase, go on to Bitrue, go on to whatever, and find an easy mechanism. Even when you go onto those, you go onto those apps, on the exchanges, some of them can be confusing. But you go to a platform like Celsius, man, you move your asset, you get your interest.
Celsius made it easy,
straightforward. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but yeah. Well, I'll just add something that kind of brings, look, anytime you have early adopters and early stuff, you go back to the internet, there was a time when you had to learn how to code, right? You're like, I want to put together a web page. You needed to know basic HTML before it became what it is today, and it's evolved to what it is today. Now you can go to Wix and you're like, drag this, you move this, you scale it. You don't care what the code behind it's driving it. And we found out this early, with design programs or even Word. You don't know what's happening in the background. You just type something and you want to make it 12-point or 15-point. So early adoption always has a lot of technical restraints that's around it. And one of the things, Docs, is you're bringing up a really good point, because I feel like a lot of us are in the same boat. But if I were to sit there and explain to you, like, this is how you do something on my computer or your computer, like, I'll explain it to you or you do it. Now, when you actually go through the motions of doing it, it's a lot simpler, right? Because the theory of it is, and part of it is with Flare, is it's not really, yeah, you'll be able to take your Doge and stake it, right? So when you start talking about doing an F asset, 2.5 times time collateral, how do I do this? What's the yield on it? When you start getting into that, it's confusing. You don't have the steps in front of you of how to proceed. But in theory, what you have to understand is you're holding on to something that you're going to be able to create more of in the way of rewards. So when I dive deep in the technical stuff, there's a certain amount of it that, okay, I want to see how this works. I want to have this in action. That's when you open up sandboxes and dev environments where you can go in there and start playing with it, right? Oh, okay, I see how that works. Right now, it's just a bunch of theories, right? How does it actually work? Well, when's Flare going to come out? Well, June, July. It could be later, could be earlier. Who knows? But it will get a little bit easier. And what Jeff's talking about is that the whole idea behind Robinhood was for the 20 to 30 something to say, hey, I want to get into to trading. I don't need a trade desk. I don't need all these, I don't need put orders. I don't need limit orders. I don't need all this garbage. I just want to be click and I bought, click and I sold, click and I did this. I hold this. I want to see, have I made money over time? Is it making me money? What's my average buy if I bought multiple times? Like simple little things. Simplicity is big and it sells. And guess what's going to happen to the DeFi space? In the beginning, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the most confusing thing. Then it's going to get very simplified, where you go into a dashboard, load up your assets, click a bunch of buttons, and your stuff's going. And Jeff, you brought up the easiest way of how this works is Celsius.network. Celsius.network, you don't have to know, you don't know how the yield's working in the background. You know that if you lock it up for a certain period of time, you're going to earn whatever it is, 8.5% interest, 10% interest on that stable coin. That's what you're going to get paid out every Monday. You get an email that says, here's what you got every Monday in your token.
Like clockwork.
Right? It's based on an annual percentage rate. So this is something, Alex Mashinsky brought this to the space very early, and all the other stuff, it's complicated.
He's a trendsetter.
He's a trendsetter, and it's like, it's going to get easier. I wanted to kind of segue for a moment, Jeff, if we could.
Hey, before that, I just wanted to point somebody out real quick, that my person that I go to for financial advice, you want to know that?
Who is it?
Come on, man, Berserker.
Well, who else would it be? Berserker. Berserker's here, yeah. So there was a little bit of a dust up going on today. I thought this is kind of funny. We're not going to dive too much into it.
Money.
Wall Street Journal editorial written by none other than
Journal.
Yeah,
Jake. Different image that didn't have the old XRP logo on it.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, we shouldn't assume we need to reinvent the regulatory regime just for crypto, writes Jay Clayton. So Jay Clayton, now that he's working for the big baller, and he's working in the digital asset industry, right? He writes up this whole thing, and you can read it all, and blah 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 blah. We're not to read that. Let's get into that. So then Brad Garlinghouse, basically, he comments on this Wall Street editorial tweet. It says, my main takeaway from this: Jay Clayton is joining the chorus of voices saying there is and has been a lack of regulatory clarity for crypto that stifles innovation here in the U.S. Definitely ironic, but hey, better late than never, right?
Where's the irony in that, though? I don't understand where the irony is, because I still believe that Jay Clayton already believed that way ahead of time.
Jay Clayton wouldn't have been able to make any
parting gift, right? He couldn't make regulatory. It's parting gift. So the ecosystem was here you go. Here's how we're going to get there.
Here's how we're going to get there faster and quicker than you ever thought, because Jay Clayton had nothing to do with regulation. He could do what he wanted to and said what he wanted to and have his conversations behind the scenes. He says cryptos, like nearly any innovative technology, can be used for good or bad purposes. The problem is that the U.S. companies seeking to be compliant and use this tech for good, they're left in limbo, like for Ripple or worse, because of a lack of clear, predictable framework. But again, Jeff, we brought this up so many times. Is that the SEC's job to create the framework?
No. Who do you blame? I mean, Brad Garlinghouse knows exactly who to point the finger at. And, one of those main characters is sitting as the chair of the Financial Services Committee, and her name is Maxine Waters. And, it's up to her to push this through the Financial Services Committee, bring it to discussion, bring it to a vote, push it to the Senate. Instead, it gets to the Financial Services Committee for the third time. We're talking about the Token Taxonomy Act, and there it sits. So Brad Garlinghouse knows very, very well, who he needs to, put a little pressure on. And it's not the SEC. He knows that. He knows it very well. They know who they're lobbying, and so, man, where's that? Where's that conversation? I would love to see a Brad Garlinghouse or a Brian Brooks at this point say, hey, Financial Services Committee, when are you guys going to get your act together and pass the Token Taxonomy Act? I haven't seen, that kind of passion yet coming from anywhere in the ecosystem, it's like
even the Blockchain Association.
Something's missing. Yep.
Right. And exactly. So in that regard, yeah, you're right. He did definitely give a nod. My favorite quote from the article: we must also keep in mind the default rule in the American system. Innovation is welcome, absent some legal reason to oppose it. Words to live by.
I like that. That's true. That's great.
Yeah.
That's good. All innovation, unless there's a legal issue.
Well, Jeff,
innovation is good.
At the beginning of the month, I tweeted out the schedule for the Financial Services Committee, and here's what it looked like. It looked like diversity and climate change and blah, blah, blah. But you know what it didn't have? Anything about things that were important, like cryptocurrency. So that's what it was. And then Michael Arrington, keeping it very real, said, Brad is overly kind in his analysis of that twatsicle. So I love Arrington because he says he will say and do anything. He just doesn't care. He's like Elon Musk. He doesn't really have much of a filter, but he's at a place that he can say that, where Brad is coming from, I'm a CEO of a company that's being ripped to shreds, or attempted to be ripped to shreds, which is not going very well at the moment. But yeah,
SEC. They still have their shit untied.
Yeah, they're still tripping over each other, and that's like semi of a glorious thing to kind of watch. And there are some other developments in that I would think we might be able to potentially drill down on. And two developments to happen today. James Filan tweeted two things out. Let me grab them back to back here. So the very first thing that came out was the SEC. Let me just go ahead and share my camera again. Here we go. So the first thing that happened was the SEC filed a request for an extension of time until Friday, June 11th, to respond to Ripple's motion to compel the SEC to turn over the internal Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP documents. Judge Netburn twice told them to turn it over. So, Jeff, what do you think? What kind of impact is this going to have? Now the judge, not once, but twice, now they're asking for more time, and because Ripple filed a motion to compel, which means go ahead and turn it over. We already got the go ahead from the judge. How do you think that's going to be received by the judge here?
Man, this is a good one. So the question is, why the delay? What are they buying time for? One thing that we've seen a lot of, because essentially what they want, the internal discussion, which would have been Jay Clayton coming out and talking about Bitcoin, and conversations over Ethereum. Even Hester Pierce with some of her statements, even though they're not signaling that out specifically. But it's interesting because they keep hiding behind, this is personal opinion. It's not done in any form of official capacity. Although we just happen to have this big SEC logo emblazoned behind us. And by the way, we're holding a press conference at the SEC, or we were invited to speak at some economic forum as a representative of the SEC. And we just happen to talk about digital assets and Bitcoin in that forum that they were invited to as a representative of the SEC. But that statement was in their personal capacity, not their official capacity. But at the end of the day, does it really make that big of an impact? I mean, it does, because this is how they're seen, because it's showing, if this is what they think about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and now they have a different thought process on XRP, then why? Why double standard? But at the end of the day, which we keep referencing, and I'll keep pressing this until it happens, is in order to advance the space through this clarity, it has to be done the right way and has to go through Congress, or it's going to go through this lawsuit and they're going to set precedent, and that's it. So that's why we hope, at least if there's an outcome, to put it to rest, right, Chip? I mean, you got to put this to rest. You can't let it hang that XRP is an unregistered security, or that even if XRP, even if there's no outcome statement on that, that they were selling an unregistered, or they sold XRP as an unregistered security. That action of selling XRP would have been selling as an unregistered security in that snapshot of a moment. Kind of like what happened to Kick. They said, hey, you were selling an unregistered security. Okay, pay your fine. What happened to the retail investors? There was no guidance whatsoever from that court case of what the retail investors were supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. And
you can't leave it like that. It can't just be open-ended.
Well, I mean, it gets even funnier here. I mean, I got to tell you, they keep, like you said, Jeff, your analogy of them stepping, like having their shoelaces untied, I think they're tied together, and I think they try to run, and they keep falling down and smashing their, doing face plants. Right. Do you know what I mean? It's like they boom, and then face plant. They go, okay, let's do this again. They get up, they're shoelaces. That was a fun thing to do when you were a kid.
That was also, hey, I want to put this up. So Patrick Patterson is saying, I'm under 50 and I just used Pancake for the first and probably last time a month ago, even knowing how it's just too much. But I just want to point out under 50, because 50, once you hit that 50 point, then forget about it. It's all lost.
Done.
Hopeless at that point, because
Done.
50 is that, but he's under 50. So
that's tipping point. So he's like a fulcrum, right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right. That's what it is. But under 50, still, for you guys that are over 50, then it's just, sorry, it's way too confusing.
You're never going to be able to do it. Yeah, but he's making a good point, though, because there's so many bells and whistles and hoops and stuff. And if you're buying one of these weird coins and you don't have the right thing that can be impersonated, you could be grabbing the right thing. If you search for it, grab the wrong one on a Pancake swap. If you're trying to swap it with a coin. So unless you have the exact sort of signature of that coin, you're risking an imposter coming in, you're buying nothing, or you're swapping it with nothing and they get so yeah, there's a lot that could go wrong with that. I agree. I've been through it.
Try to get to Pancake Swap, try to get to Uniswap. Now you got to use Ethereum. I told you that story with my
oh, Jeff, it's like legend already. You've already screwed the pooch too many times on that puppy already. So
I'm not gonna tell it again.
All right, so let's look at this one here, right here. Let's see. Let's get that out there. So Ripple files a SIR reply showing that of more than 70 cases cited in the Cornerstone report outside of Ripple, none alleged violation of Section 5's registration requirement for the sale of digital assets outside the context of ICO. So what does that mean? So there is no violation of the Section 5 registration, because all of this, what they're alleging here is that because there were 60, 70 cases and were cited by the SEC, that was the warning. That there is no fair notice. It was kind of like the SEC shooting over the bow saying, did you see that thing right there? That was your potential warning that it could be a potential security. Now, what they're saying here is the fact that the ICO, most of these like Kick, what was some of the other ones? Telegram, like the Gram, those were ICOs, initial coin offerings. They're comparing apples to oranges here, and that's what Ripple's calling them out.
Different.
Yeah, Ripple's calling them out. It's not a Section 5 requirement, because they're trying to say that Ripple should have known. Ripple didn't do any ICO. The coins were already minted. It's really starting to look like that lead trial attorney that left. They brought a new one in last minute. They started asking for delays.
Doesn't know.
The other attorney was smart. Probably thought like, look, this is not going to go well.
It's not another job.
This is my reputation. I do not want to be that guy known for blowing it. They bring in a new guy who's almost making it worse, right? So all of this,
he didn't ask for reassignment. He left the SEC.
He's like, I'm out. Like, and just that, boom, just like that, hits the docket. He's out. See you later. Door doesn't even have time to hit him on the ass on the way out. Smart guy. Because the problem is they keep making historical mistakes, just the bombastic mistakes. They're trying to say, like, you should have known because we went after all these Yeah, they were all ICOs, dummy.
Yeah, and how about 8 years ago? Why, they kept referencing the fact that there was letters between their attorney back in 2012. Oh, that would have done. And now here you have the SEC bringing, wrong case. Either they're referencing the wrong things. So it's confusing. It is confusing. That's why it has to go through this conversation and has to go through this analysis. It has to go through proper discovery. Let the two parties battle it out. But we're seeing firsthand where the SEC has a clear misunderstanding of the events and of how they're arguing it. It's amazing to me. But I want to give a shout out to what does that say?
Fullerene 206. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
206. I'm sure it's a really cool thing, but on our software, unfortunately, we don't see it. Everyone in the YouTube sphere sees it.
Yeah, what do we see? We see just what you saw there was just like a cool green thing. I mean, so that's why guys can always throw a message along with that, which is always something pretty cool. But yeah, the way I look at what's happening right now with the SEC, Jeff, if you go back and review our videos from December, people laughed at us. We said this is one of the weakest cases filed. Jeff and I went through, dissected the whole thing. That's when we really started. We used to stream once a week. That's when we started doing daily streams, right? That's kind of what kicked it all off. Started streaming saying, look at how weak this is. They're not even alleging fraud, and they're pulling one of the founders and the CEO into this. What does that have to do with anything? And the whole idea of the XRP, being a...
See you later.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate that. Thanks for that, Jeff. Now you totally broke my chain of thought. But I am the more, what was that? The level-headed one. Okay, so yeah, there's always that. But so when we think about the ecosystem expanding, so much good stuff is happening. I mean, look at this right here. I wanted to show you how fast things can change. Flare community put this up, this tweet up, and you want to see how fast the Flare ecosystem is expanding. They ran some polls to find out what they should launch for 6 new digital assets to be added to the Flare Finance suite of DeFi products. Check it out. The Cell token, Jeff, is now in the Flare ecosystem. Cake, Shiba, Sansu. So you have all of this on, and this is what it was right here. You had the vote came in. I saw the vote. You could vote on which ones you wanted, and this is how you're going to be able to mint F assets at the launch for each category. You got your Ethereum covered with Tell and Sell, your Binance with Binance BNB and Cake, and then you've got your meme coins, Shiba, Inu, and Sansu. So this right here, I mean, if you're a Shiba, fan, you ought to be just dancing right now because you just got a use case. And guess what? What's funny about that is when you look at, with the last dip we've had, some of these meme coins, they just almost got dipped out of existence, right? So they could potentially make a comeback. I expect some of them to stay around, but don't laugh. Everyone laughed at Doge, right? They laughed at Doge. Ha ha. Listen, don't laugh. This stuff right here is what dreams are made of. You go ahead and get into a digital asset, don't know anything about it. Your pal taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, what's happening? Oh, check it out, man. You can take your coin and you can participate in DeFi. What's DeFi? You see? So now you've created this whole structure. I think this is fantastic.
I like it. And check out, let me just, while just in the middle, let me throw this up for, just so we can get some context here to what you're talking about. Celsius Network, 744.
Amazing, Jeff.
It's up. And it's one of the few assets that's up this week at 2.3%. The other is Kusama. I don't know what that is, but look at all this red. Lots of red. Got some excitement there. I don't that has got some green. Solana's got some green. Dogecoin, little green. But man, look at Cell's got to show the love there. So
no, it's really good. But there is one sort of caveat here. If you look at this as an important note, these selected currencies will not become official F assets, like XRP and Doge. They're all supported by the Flare wrap and listed on FlareX to become bridged assets. So there's a lot of wrapping. You can wrap it and unwrap it the same way you can do with XRP. in some of these other ecosystems where you wrap it and you put it in there. So it's not, it's a little bit different, but so what? It's still giving it a potential use case, you know. The Flare network, much like the WBTC, which is wrapped Bitcoin or the wrapped Ether, and the only official F assets of today are FXRP, F Litecoin, F Doge, and FXLM. Those are the official ones. But again, being able to wrap it and unwrap it is going to still give it some power and potential that it doesn't have today. And I think that's key, man. That's huge.
That's right.
Huge, Jeff.
Chop Fury saying bringing meme coins in just gives greater exposure to DeFi as they have fairly big communities.
That's a very, very solid point.
Big.
Jeff, I was going to see if you could actually pull this up on your computer. If you go down to the Gary Gensler one and the Keep, the very first one, the Twitter one,
the G-Man.
If you could play that clip, it says Gary Gensler, chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Here, I will put it to you in here. It's right in the private chat. Click on that link in the private chat.
Oh, great.
So if you click on that link, if you could play the clip from the 9-minute and 45-second mark, I want people to hear this. This was an interview today with the Wall Street Journal. I believe it was Wall Street Journal. But if you could play that one section for us.
Let me download it real quick.
Yeah, that's probably not a bit. So the reason I want to play this was because it was a pretty interesting interview. Kind of skipped around, looked at it. Are you able to download it okay?
Yeah, give me that.
Yeah, so as you're downloading that, so I was waiting to hear a very good, sort of a statement on what kind of questions. So they asked, on Friday there was a big firing that went on. There was they fired some audit watchdogs, and again, this came from the Democratic side of the aisle from Senator Warren and also Senator Sanders, which wanted these. Which were former Republican or were Republicans, but they were like holdovers. So that was one of Gensler's very first moves, is firing Republican audit watchdogs. So there you go.
To go to the original tweet to download it.
Okay, well, whatever you have to do. I mean, you don't have to download it. You just play it from there.
I'm going to have to play it from here at this point. I went to the original, still not downloading.
It's going to take too long to download. But go ahead and go to the if you would, the 9-minute and 45-second mark once you share the audio and all that. And let's see if we can't get that queued up. But
here we go.
And I would play it, but I'm about ready to freeze any moment here because my system's
all right. What time frame?
9 minutes and 45 seconds. Queued up right around there, and if you do full screen on that. But you'll see her. You'll see the change to her, and she's asking the question. Okay, so I'm going to pop out just briefly, and I'll be right back. Hang on.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, we'll let Chip do that. Meanwhile, I think he broke Twitter while he was at it. So nothing like the unprepared. So, all right, I was going over this thing with I talked about Motley Fool, which I thought was interesting. There's a lot going on right now over in Russia as well. And I think that's interesting to see, where we're seeing a lot of changes, globally.
Have you ever played that clip, or?
No, it's not coming up. It's not playing.
All right. Well, that's a shame because that was a really probably one of the more spectacular points to make, and bitch slap Gensler. So we'll just have to go without it. I guess it was one of those things that could have been cool, but it turned out not to be.
But it doesn't want to play.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do? It's just let me try to play it on my side.
All right, let's try it again. Nope, it doesn't want to play. Try to refresh it.
Let's see if I can get it to play over here.
And it's weird because it plays. It's when I try to fast forward it doesn't like that. Oh, here we go. I got it working now. Here we go. Let me back up. Okay, let me back up again. All right. Here we go. All right, here we go. All right, you guys ready? All right, here we go.
Yeah, make it full screen there. Click that little.
Oh, you put it up there.
Click the little thing in the bottom right corner there.
I know how to go full screen.
Okay.
Simmer down.
All right. Just got to get to the question. We missed the question.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, but we missed the question.
How do we do that? So I think it's.
We're not at the 9:45 yet.
Okay, good.
We have a comment period, and if the public wants to weigh in even now through June 13th, I think the commissioner, then acting chair Lee, had started, and we'll take that into consideration as well. What the broad investing public thinks in these areas.
Yeah, and is it fair to say, Gary, this is a high priority for you, that we could see new rules, maybe even within proposals within a year? I mean, the US is seen by some as lagging behind, certainly regulators in Europe and some other jurisdictions.
No, I think that's absolutely right, Gene, that this is a high priority. And it's because of the investor demand, that investors are reaching out increasingly in this country, as well as around the globe, as you say, and saying, we take this into consideration when we're investing. It'd be helpful to have some consistent comparability, decision useful, investment decision useful.
Jeff, I think that's pretty spot on so far. That's what people want.
Right, Jeff. But hang on a second. Now I want you to go back to the 7 minute and 10 second, right around 7 minute, 10 second mark, maybe 7 minute. Why? Because this is the actual question. Now, what did you think that question was about before you play it? What did you think she was talking about when she talked about the U.S. is lagging behind? Really need a better framework. What was she talking about, Jeff?
We're talking about the, I would think, better framework for digital assets.
Correct.
Not having enough clarity for innovation and building, and we're chasing the companies away.
Okay, now play it from the 7 minute and 10 second mark, because then you'll find out what you originally asked them. This was a sort of compounding on that. I want you to play that bit of it.
I got to refresh it again.
Okay. So, when I originally watched this, I started saying, oh yeah, like, okay, go, spot on. The problem was, as I was watching it, I forgot what the original question was. And the original question is very different than what do you think about the legal framework for digital assets, and the U.S. is lagging behind, because that's exactly how it appeared, right? So if you get that 7 minute, 10 second mark there, yeah, about 7 minute mark, you can play it from there.
It's hard to fast forward this. So here we go. All right.
It is because it's it's one of those Twitter videos.
Yep. It's better to download. Here we go.
Okay, so executives should be worried. Let's turn to another topic that's getting our CFO audience concerned. Climate risk disclosure. Now, it's something we're going to be talking about in greater depth with a panel later today, but I know our audience is really interested to hear your personal views on this. So, Gary, do you have a model in mind for how this might work? Should companies be given a set of principles and allowed to decide themselves what's important to disclose? Or do you favor an approach of saying prescriptive rules? Here's exactly what they have to disclose. And presumably also, do you want it to be mandatory?
So these are good questions.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. They're not good questions, Jeff. They're horrible questions.
I like that. I like that. Mandatory.
Mandatory. Not only that, but so what we were listening to, what you thought was a follow-up to that question. The U.S. is lagging behind in climate change garbage. This is what they were focusing on. This is the kind of ridiculous questions the Wall Street Journal was asking. I'm like, I'm out. I don't even know. There wasn't one question about cryptocurrency in there. One of the biggest things in today's news, not one single question. And that guy gave the typical politician answer where he said a lot of words and said nothing. Well, everyone is investing and everyone thinks about this. And when they make a move, it's on the tip of their tongue. And when they're going to make a decision, and this is why we want to protect investors. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? That was just bizarre to me, Jeff. The whole thing was absolutely bizarre. I was like, there wasn't one cryptocurrency, one digital asset. The U.S. is lagging behind. It was tough to watch, Jeff.
We're lagging behind, and it's somehow the role and position of the SEC to be an enforcer on companies as it comes to whether or not they're abiding by their carbon credits, by their environmental friendliness. How is that the role of the SEC? I don't understand.
It has nothing to do with the SEC.
They're blending these lines. Stay in your lane. Stay in the enforcement area of whether or not something is in breach of being a security or not. Do it the right way. Focus on protecting investor rights, investor money, and let other departments within government consider what's going on with the environment. Hence, you have departments focused on the environment. I don't know, the EPA maybe.
Hey, by the way, Mark Splice, if you can see the comment in there, I want to put it on screen. I probably shouldn't put it on screen. Gensler Eats, that one, that made me laugh. Thank you for that, Mark. That was, if you saw me cracking up right there, you know exactly why I was laughing. I really needed that tonight. That was really spot on. And there's always this one too. Let's see, that wasn't it. Oh, that was like, you got to click on a comment that it doesn't. Oh, right here. Gary the Greasy Lizard Grifter says Berserker. There you go.
Hey, Chip, did you know that we stream 6 days a week?
Yes, we do, Jeff. 6 days a week, starting on Sunday, which was last night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I believe on Saturday morning.
And we stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time during the week, and Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We even have a podcast, and you guys can go check that out. If you find your favorite method of watching or listening to a podcast, you can check that out and listen in the comfort of your vehicle or the comfort of your earbud headset or whatever while you're walking, and you're not burning up your screen with your YouTube, which is cool too. We always appreciate a thumbs up. We appreciate the comments that you guys leave after the fact with the videos. And I did want to point out there's a bunch of people in here. If you're brand new here at On the Chain, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notifier. That way you'll get notified. Get this. You'll get notified every time we go live. And I do want to shout, point out that within our comment section, we try to read all the different comments and comment on the comments, but yet there are a ton of spammy, scammy comments that hit every single day, every video, every day, and even now replying. And so if we reply, we always reply in a specific way. And a lot of times you'll see On the Chain Live responding with a WhatsApp or some garbage. We don't throw out any WhatsApp numbers. Nothing to do with WhatsApp. So if you see the scam, see the spam, you guys can, erase them, or we'll I don't think you guys can over there, but you can point it out. But anyhow, I just wanted to make that statement. And also, we appreciate everybody here. Tomorrow is another night, and we'll be back here, Chip, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Fine. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.